Well, guys, it was about time that Jesto got a W, and I have to admit it's a huge W. He went up to Modi and he said, look, you Shudra, get into the fields, work the rice paddies, pay the salt tax, do what the viceroy tells you to do. It looks like colonialism's back on the menu. And he tried to protest, but Justo called him a peace slur and an SS slur, and he ran away crying back to India. It's a big W for Justo. Canada is widely acknowledged once again as being a powerful country. We're back, baby. We're back on the international stage. The British Empire is back. We're getting the whole crew back together, and we're going to put India in its place. Now, what is it that Justin decided to put India in its place over? The alleged murder of an illegal immigrant, independence activist, terrorist who was actively working to undermine the Indian government while hiding behind his Canadian citizenship that he never should have gotten. Oh, yeah, that's kind of maybe not as big a W as I originally thought. But I mean, it's Justo, so what can you expect? If he's going to stand up for Canada, if he's going to pick a fight with a major power, it's going to be over something as fake and G-slur as that. If anything, the fact that this is what we're having a diplomatic row with India over is the essence of Canada. This is like the platonic form of what Canada would have a diplomatic dispute with another country over. That an illegal immigrant who we gave citizenship to under false pretenses was carrying out terrorist attacks in another country, and he got killed, and it's a violation of our sovereignty. We should be allowed to have Canada serve as the Libya of the North and just have all these random independence movements and extremist groups operate here and attack wherever they want. And Modi tried to challenge that. But once again, is this really a surprise? This is Justo we're talking about. This is the man who, we're just going to play this, and I'm sorry, I played this before, and it's cringe, and listening to Justin Trudeau even talk is like torture. The only time in my life that I felt bad for Pope Francis was when he met Justin Trudeau, and Justin's like, I lectured him about Catholic values, and I actually felt kind of bad for him. So this is something that Justo said 5 years ago, and let's go.
A little heckling out here, so appreciate you coming. I just want to know how your stance on ISIS is going to help Canadians in any way. I need to know how you're going to protect future Canadians, like my young daughter, and 10, 15, 20 years from now, when you're letting people in with an ideology that just does not conform to what we're doing here. So, I'd really like to know what your take on things.
Absolutely. No, I think that's gives me an opportunity to talk about first of all, the fact that one of the reasons Canada is successful as a country is because we have been open to people fleeing persecution, fleeing war zones.
ISIS, fleeing persecution, fleeing war zones. Now, the cope that I've seen for this clip is that Justo was just ignoring the question, and he was talking about immigration in general, and he didn't want to fearmonger by condemning members of ISIS. And Canada has a long association with members of ISIS, or as our government likes to call them, returning terrorist travelers. So the cope here is that Justin ignored what the guy said, and he's just talking about immigration in general.
Looking for a better life for themselves and their kids. That's been the story of this country from the time the first European settlers came to be received by Indigenous people. People were fleeing conflict.
How did that work out for the Indigenous people? Like, this narrative is so schizophrenic. It's like, well, it was genocide and colonialism, but I don't know.
Conflict, poverty, difficult situations, and came to Canada to build a better life for themselves. And successive waves of people have in every different time, and every different wave.
And ISIS is the one at the moment.
When we welcomed in waves of refugees, whether it was the Ismaili refugees in the early 70s, whether it was the Vietnamese boat people in the early 80s, whether it was people fleeing the devastation of the Second World War from Southern Europe in the 50s and 60s, the Italian communities, the Greek communities, the Portuguese communities, and others.
Well, he's comparing like Holocaust refugees to ISIS members, so yeah.
Our country is so much the better for it. And there is a sense at one point that, okay, maybe now that's enough. Maybe we have just about all the diversity we can handle and we shouldn't have any more.
Maybe now we shouldn't have ISIS members.
Well, I can tell you, when Italian families settled in Montreal in the post-war years, they faced terrible discrimination and people who pushed back at them and said, no, no, no. You don't belong here, you don't speak English or French. Every wave of immigration has faced pushback because of how they dressed or how they sounded or what their belief was, what their religion was.
What their belief was, their belief as Salafists and members of ISIS. So this is a long-term thing. So this is a thing that's been going on for a long time, and I remember this was the case. So a bunch of Canadian citizens went to go join ISIS. And the Canadian government, and I shit you not, this is on the this is the Government of Canada website. Where is it? Travelers. Yes. Our Minister of Public Safety, Ralph Goodall, referred to them as terrorist travelers or returning terrorist travelers. That's how we define them in Canada. It's like a bunch of carolers. They go off to Syria, they behead some Christians. I think the Yazidi community in Canada like begged the government not to, and the government just told them to go fuck themselves. So it's, let's see here. So as he says, they're terrorist travelers. We can't call them it's like it does. I don't know. But, yeah, so I think what wound up happening is there were several hundred, which I don't believe, I think it was probably much higher, members of ISIS Canadian citizens who went to join ISIS, and a bunch of them came back, and only a couple of them were actually prosecuted, and the Conservatives got really mad about it. Oh yeah, here's another one. Canadian extremist travelers. Yeah, Canadian extremist travelers. Like, once again, this is this isn't me. This isn't the parody site. This is the Government of Canada's website. Like, this just shows you how unserious we are as a country. So let's take a look at another article. So the approach that was undertaken by the Trudeau government for the returning terrorist travelers was to de-radicalize them, we aren't going to go ahead and arrest them or put them in jail. Actually, the Conservatives put forward a piece of legislation that was unanimously passed with the exception of Elizabeth May, telling the government that they had to prosecute known members of ISIS. The government refused to do it. I think they prosecuted a couple of people. But he said, foreign terrorist travelers returning to Canada require the appropriate disengagement and reintegration support. So they spent tons of money on it, including $400,000 on an initiative which created podcasts and poetry as a means to counter radical beliefs. They also gave all the money to Omar Khadr, the guy who infamously killed a U.S. medic by throwing a hand grenade at him, but he was an innocent child soldier, so it's okay. I think it's of the 60 people we know were ISIS members, and I believe it's way higher than that. I believe that this is probably in the thousands, if not like tens of thousands. Okay, we also have this whole thing is so insane. Like, once again, this is something I thought was a joke. So let's try to just unpack this. So we'll get to the whole India thing in a bit. But I just want I'm trying to present a case here about how the Canadian state takes the issue of international terrorism and whether or not India maybe has a point here. So let's just go through this. So we'll just call him Chaudhry. Is a Canadian who gained international recognition. I know this is Wikipedia, but this was the best summary I could find. Under the pseudonym, whatever, as the subject of Caliphate, a podcast hosted by a certain person of New York Times, an award-winning podcast. His time as a member of ISIS. He claimed that in 2014 he emptied his bank account, traveled to Syria, and joined the terrorist group Islamic State, where he remained until 2016. In the wake of the podcast release, conservative MPs called on the government to find and arrest him amid rumors that he returned to Canada. However, he ultimately was arrested, fortunately, on the grounds that he made the whole thing up. So he returned to Canada. He claimed he killed people. I think he said that he tortured people and stuff like that. I think he killed at least 2 people. I think he worked for like the religious police or something like that, and all this other stuff. And this former CSIS F-slur said he could be rehabilitated. It was like, we have to feel sorry for him. We have to feel sorry for him. So the Liberals were like, no, okay, let's see here. After Chaudhry said he fought for the Islamic State, conservative MPs called for action against him. Particularly Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government, for not ordering law enforcement to arrest him. Goodall said they were doing where he was and arresting him would be the opposite of keeping Canadians safe. Justin also said the questions were divisive, and because we can't like the fact that the Conservatives want a known member of ISIS who did a podcast publicly bragging about killing people, that's okay. But the cope is going to be that he made the whole thing up. So we have the Caliphate podcast. It won the Peabody Award, although apparently the whole thing turned out to be completely fake. Arrested for faking his thing with ISIS. We also have the Tamil Tigers. So the transitional government of Tamil State is for some reason in Toronto. That makes sense. 10 years after the Sri Lanka civil war ended in horrifying violence, an international group continues to work for a separate Tamil state in north and east Sri Lanka. For now, its Canadian office is on the second floor of a Scarborough Plaza building. Tamil Canadians helped finance the war in the separatist liberation Tigers of Tamil and through the World Tamil Movement. I always think that Tamil Tigers sounds like a hockey team. It's like Tamil Tigers. They're great. They were banned and wiped out. And then there was a new separatist group led by this guy. There is a group of Canadian parliamentarians. We want the non-Tamils to come to our rescue. We have the fake MPs. Let's see here. They had a fake referendum in Canada. Let's see here. Nearly 100% of Canadian Tamils voting in 2009 before the supported a separate state. So we have the independence movement of the Tamils. We have that F-slur Patrick Brown, who used to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Ontario, pledging to pass a municipal motion declaring crimes against the Tamil nation in Sri Lanka constituted genocide. It passed unanimously. John Tory said there's a Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day. He visited the war's final battlefields in 2016, and this month said there is much justice left to be found. And then there's Tamil Genocide Education Week. So Canada is hosting the Government in Exile that is a successor to... Keep in mind, the Tamil Tigers were declared a terrorist organization by the government of Canada. They're moderate Tamil people, like moderate Muslims. let's see here. A sociologist says no international organization, including the UN, has declared what happened during the war as a genocide. So we have that. And that brings us to our buddy here that Justo decided to get into a fight with India over. Picking a fight with Modi, picking a fight with BRICS. This is the issue where Justo had to stand up for Canada. And someone was telling me why I call him Justo. It's what Surfer and PPP call him, and I thought it was a funny nickname, so I just started using it. Okay, so as the House of Commons reconvened on Monday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau informed Parliament that there were credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the murder of Nijjar. We'll just call him Hardeep, so I don't want to get deplatformed. A Sikh leader who Trudeau described as a Canadian citizen. As a consequence, an Indian diplomat was expelled from Canada. The man at the center of this diplomatic storm was gunned down in June this year, and the investigation remains open to his murder. Hardeep, 45, was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds inside a vehicle outside of some Sikh temple on June 18th. The RCMP's integrated homicide investigation team, that sounds like the Canadian version of CSI, initially saw two suspects described as heavier set males wearing face coverings. However, they said the men were not acting alone. Trudeau confirmed that authorities were investigating links between the murder and people linked to the Indian government. So, before we get into this, do I think the Indian government did this? No. No, I don't think the Indian government did this. I don't think, or at least the highest levels of the Indian government. So I think there's two possible. Okay, other than he just got whacked by another rival Sikh nationalist group, or he just got killed because it's Vancouver, and stuff like that just happens sometimes. I think that's Vancouver. I'm assuming it's Vancouver. Anyways, assuming it wasn't just a random act of violence or another group, I think it's possible that some subsection or some agent within the Indian intelligence services decided to unilaterally carry it out. The Indian deep state isn't like the Pakistani one, which is completely autonomous and just blows stuff up all the time and commits terrorist attacks all the time and has basically no civilian control and is trying actively to start a war with India. That doesn't happen in India, at least to the same extent. I think, and this is my speculation, that a Hindu nationalist group assassinated him. Either one that's based in India or another Hindu ultra-nationalist group that's based in Canada, and that they decided to carry out this hit on their own initiative. Because this sort of thing does happen in India from time to time, where Hindu nationalists will burn down Muslim neighborhoods or kill communists or other minorities. And it happens from time to time. So I think those are the two most likely things, that it was a unilateral action by someone within the Indian intelligence services, or it was a Hindu nationalist group. So let's go here. So Hardeep, was that his name? Hardeep moved to Canada in February 1997 to be a plumber. He was a key figure in the movement for an independent Khalistan, a separate homeland for Sikhs in the Indian subcontinent. But for the Indian government, he was wanted for allegedly being a mastermind / active member of the Khalistan Tiger Force. Why are these always called Tiger Forces? Like, do they all have to be a Kellogg cereal? Which the Indian government is designated as a terrorist group. Now, I'm going to show you the logo of the Khalistan Tiger Force. I can't tell if this is Kino or this is like look at this. Like, what the fuck? It's like literally just terrible clip art. They just it's a fucking Indian and fucking amazing. And they actually used the logo on like their official propaganda posters. Like, look at that. Look at these fucking clowns. Like, what the fuck? The Khalistan fucking Tiger Force. This is how fake and G-slur the world is. This is what the fucking joke that the Canada as a country is. That the dude whose organization, let's see, where is it? Okay, well, I'm sure uses like that logo. That his assassination is why we're starting a diplomatic row with India. The Khalistan fucking Tiger Force. The fucking Tony the Tiger Force. Okay, so let's see here. Let's go back to the article. Where was it? Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a professional. Okay. Seek Dash, fellow friend, has told Global News in June. Why is he here if he's a Sikh nationalist? If he's wanting to establish Khalistan, shouldn't he be doing that in Khalistan? Shouldn't he be in Punjab? And that's one of the things why this country's a joke. Is we have these assholes who come here and they set up their independence movements or their terrorist groups where they try to fund militants in their home country. And like we're just supposed to accept this and think that this is awesome. Like that we have, as Justo put it, it's diversity that we have all these random militant groups operating in Canada. And we should like celebrate this and I don't know, be happy about it. Let's see here. The Canadian Security and Intelligence Service also told Nijjar, we'll just call him Nijjar, that they had information that he was under threat from professional assassins. This whole thing, like if this involved the US, I would suspect that the FBI set this up. I don't know why. But we have like the Khalistan Tiger Force. That sounds like the kind of like bullshit name that they would come up with, like the Wolverines or whoever those assholes were in Michigan. They have this shitty logo that some intern made in like 5 seconds. And they're talking about professional like deep web assassins now. So we have him. So he was arrested in 1995. He claimed in his former affidavit to immigration officials that he was beaten and tortured for information about his brother. He said he secured a bribe, cut his hair short, and escaped. Exactly the kind of person who we want in our country. Some dude who was part of a insurgency in India against the Indian government, who has bribed guards and escaped custody. Once again, this is assuming that all this stuff is true. Assuming that any of this actually happened. In 1998, his refugee claim was denied. According to his immigration records, he used a fraudulent passport that identified him as Ravi Sharma, aka Ravi Shwarma. I know that my life would be in grave danger if I had to go back to my country, he wrote in his affidavit dated June 9th. Now, I don't know how to feel about this because when people gave sworn affidavits about ethics in video game journalism regarding the 2020 American presidential election, we were told that not a single one of those, even if they were legally binding, could be believed. But now they're telling us we should believe the affidavits, so I don't really know. His application was rejected, and 11 days later, he married a BC woman who sponsored him to immigrate as his spouse. That's totally legitimate. That's not immigration fraud. On his application form, he was asked whether he was associated with a group that used or advocated armed struggle or violence to reach political, religious, or social objectives. He said no. See, he said no. I mean, this article posits that they have evidence of that. So he lied on, he had a fake passport, he lied on his immigration application, he entered into a fake marriage. They appealed to the courts, lost again, but he somehow became a Canadian citizen. So, I mean, this This is a success of the Canadian immigration system. Somehow, like after all this, trying to scam the Canadian government, they just let him in. They probably like thought that he was a normal dude, and he's like, "No, I'm a terrorist. I'm supporting this independence movement in India, and I'm going to bring that here. But I'm also going to fundraise for the Liberal Party or something." And they were just like, "Sign me up. You can totally come in." I hope this dispels the baseless rumors that he was not a Canadian. He ran a plumbing business in Surrey, BC, like Tony Soprano's sanitation business. He rose to become a prominent advocate for the creation of Khalistan, a separate Sikh nation. He traveled throughout the world and called for a referendum on Khalistan and called for anti-Sikh violence in India to be recognized as genocide. Now, I don't know what opinion I'm supposed to have on this one, because I was told that referendums aren't legitimate. That the referendum that they hold in Crimea, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, that these referendums weren't legitimate. The referendum Gibraltar had to remain part of the UK wasn't legitimate. The Falkland Island referendum wasn't legitimate. The South Ossetia referendum wasn't legit. None of these referendums were legitimate. But this one would have been. The Khalistan independence movement would have been. He was accused of being involved in the 2007 bombing of a cinema in Punjab. And a 2016 Interpol notice against him alleged he was a key conspirator in the attack. A 2016 Interpol notice alleged he was a key conspirator in the attack. He was accused of recruiting, fundraising, a charge that he denied. Well, if he said he didn't do it, then he didn't do it. I mean, why are we even having this? This discussion. He said that they're like, "Did you blow this place up?" And he said no. So we should just take him at his word. Let's see here. Director of Sikhs for Justice. Several people very vocal about threats that were being made to him discreetly and other individuals associated. Let's see here. A referendum, an unofficial vote by like some random group. 100,000 people in Surrey, BC showed up for this vote because that's legitimate, guys. We're having a referendum of people who are living in another country. And once again, it pisses me off, and I hate to be like a center-right boomercon here. But like, it's so shitty. It's like, we're going to move to Canada, but our entire focus is going to be using it as like some sort of bridgehead to try to retake our homeland, and our loyalty lies with Khalistan. I mean, to a certain extent, I kind of respect it. And if there's a country that's so unserious, that's so retarded, that's such a massive joke as Canada, I kind of have to give them credit for doing this. For using us in that way. I mean, in the words of the late the great President George W. Bush, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, we can't get fooled again." But the most emotional appeal came from Jagmeet Singh, who was the first Sikh Canadian to lead a major Canadian political party. He's banned from traveling to India, which is base. All I want to say is Punjabi is everything we heard today. We all knew as children that the Indian government commits many atrocities, but we never thought we'd have to face the danger after coming here to Canada. I want to say to everybody that I am here. With whatever strength I have, I will not budge till justice is served in this case. I will not budge till every link is investigated and justice is served. See, that's his primary concern, is whatever the fuck this is. So, did the Indian government do this? I don't think so. I think it was a rogue intelligence operative, or it was a Hindu nationalist group. But to be perfectly honest, could I really blame them? I can't recall the last time Canada's extradited any of these assholes. And if there's another country that's harboring known terrorists that are blowing stuff up inside of your country, there's lots of cases like when America attacked Libya or Afghanistan or allegedly Iraq, where they did that to deal ostensibly with the threat of terrorists in those countries who were screwing with them elsewhere. So you could argue that the Indian government, that this was a legitimate action, that Canada is aiding and abetting known terrorists, known independence movements that are actively fighting the Indian government, and is providing safety and shelter to them and allowing them to recruit fighters and money and stuff like that. I think you could even make the case that Canada is, to a certain extent, complicit with ISIS. For we just touched the surface of that earlier. So, from a certain extent, I think you could make that case that if India did this, they were just acting in self defense against a country that refused to provide them with justice and extradite a known terrorist. But this is the level that we're at. This is the leaders of Canada, Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, and they're gonna destroy our relationship with India. They're gonna fuck like Canada's international reputation over because some illegal immigrant terrorist got whacked. And that's my country. That's how fake and G-slur this place is. So, God bless everybody. I don't know what to tell you.